about a month and a half ago, we were joined by Mike James, the former LA Times sports editor, on Skype, and he has been gracious enough to join us because that was such a great time that we had with him before. And of all the people we've had on Skype, including Troy Renck, Mike gets it. He knows how to do it. And if it's anything like last time, he has this great backdrop for when he talks to us. Are you there, Mike? There he is.
I'm here.
See? Look, Troy joined. This is Troy Renck. I don't know whether you ever met him, Mike.
Troy, how are you?
Good, Mike.
Troy will Skype us from like Broncos headquarters, and you see the ceiling, or his house. There's his laundry in the back of him, or his backyard. The dogs are running around, everything, the kids. But Mike knows how to Skype. Look at that. That is
That's
beautiful.
a good-looking Skype picture.
So that's the most. We want you to join us like every day, so we can show people how great Skype can look.
Well, thanks. When I was Skyping with our reporters at the Times, I'd often find them with lamps shining directly on their foreheads, and they look like something out of the dark lagoons or something. So,
Mike, we just had Bob Ryan on the show, and he was talking about, he remembers, and I'm sure you will too, an LA Lakers Boston Celtics meltdown that happened probably 15, 18 years ago, and he said, but nothing matched last night. Would you share your opinions about what we saw last night or what we didn't see?
well, you see, the difference there is that Bob's lived on the East Coast. I've lived out here for 30-something years, and I've seen what the Clippers can do. And this last night was not without precedent. Let's say.
No.
I mean, the Clippers. My wife and I. My wife's a very big basketball NBA fan too, and we've come to accept that when we're watching the Clippers on television, a 20-point lead is not safe until there are 3 minutes left in the game, and then it becomes a little less dicey, but it's still dicey then. That's the history of the Clippers, and that's kind of a feeling that lingers in any game they play, even today with today's team. That's a there's a really good basketball team, but that historical reference is something that they last night really couldn't shake. They absolutely self-destructed.
Yeah, I think they missed 15 of their last 16 shots. That was the worst quarter of basketball in 20 years, and I was trying to think it had to be like the worst fourth quarter in the history of the Clippers, not just in the last 20 years, going back to San Diego. Do you think they can, Mike James from the prestigious Los Angeles Times, where he was sports editor, longtime sports editor, with a great sports section, can they recover from this in Game 7 in Houston?
Well, they can, I think. I mean, remember how in against the Spurs they got absolutely blown out in Game 3, I think it was, in San Antonio, and then came back the next game and won. And I would have bet my house that wouldn't have happened. And they've come back. They've got some history in recent years of coming back in Game 7. They won at Memphis in Game 7 a couple of years ago. They beat San Antonio in Game 7. They beat Golden State in Game 7 last year. So it's possible with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, if the three of them show up, as they almost do every night, and they get some support from JJ Redick and Jamal Crawford, they can win. But I think Redick and Crawford, and to a slightly lesser extent Austin Rivers, are the key to the key to this game. And if the Clippers don't get some immediate success and scoring out of those guys, they're dead.
Mike, it seemed unusual last night that Blake Griffin was having a great game, and you get to the fourth quarter, and it still looks like he and Chris Paul don't know exactly how to manage the end of that. Or, I phrase it more quickly, Chris Paul decides that he's going to be LeBron and take every shot. Blake Griffin, he had open shots when they were really struggling, when it got to they were down by 2, down by 4, and every time he got the ball at the free throw line, he immediately looked to Paul. Are they still trying to figure that relationship out? And maybe this isn't fair. What do you expect Houston to do with James Harden? They played their best basketball with him not on the floor. I mean, obviously he's going to start, but do they have to, Kevin McHale, find a balance of maybe Harden's got to cut his minutes back, because if he had stayed in that game, the Clippers win?
Well, I'm not sure that would have happened, but it's certainly possible. I mean, James Harden is James Harden. It was astonishing that he was on the bench the whole fourth quarter yesterday, and but they really responded. And McHale will, I'm sure, make that call on Harden as the game goes along. And if Harden plays as James Harden plays normally, you'll see him in there, in crunch time. But the problem with the Clippers is they tend, when it really gets to crunch time, they become indecisive.
Right.
And no one's a greater illustration of that than Rivers. That enormous game he had when he took over in the fourth quarter earlier in the series, and looked like the second coming of Michael Jordan. He did that because when he got the ball, he made a decision right away. He went to the basket, he shot a three, and produced. And you look at him now, and he gets the ball, and he looks afraid. And the Clippers, you're right, they're searching for just the right combination. Blake Griffin going scoreless in the fourth quarter is ridiculous.
Especially had the ball at like the 15 foot away from the basket multiple times.
He does that. Occasionally he'll do that, and he'll have that shot. He's got that outside shot now. That's a good reliable shot. And for him to pass that out and pass that up and look to Paul is something that I'm sure Doc Rivers is talking about, and I'm sure he's talking about all of them. Being more decisive and making a decision and going with it rather than playing tentatively, which is a recipe for disaster, with a capital D.
Terrible transition here, Mike, but when you talked to us before, we were talking about the stadium issues, the future of pro football in Los Angeles, and some people in Denver might say, well, what does that got to do with the Broncos, really? Well, you got cats and dogs that might be going to Los Angeles, and that would have an effect on Denver, because if San Diego and Oakland were able to pull off this deal, then one of those teams would have to switch to the NFC, which might bring the Seattle Seahawks back to the AFC West where they once were. Could you give us an update, any smell you get that, because we haven't really heard anything after all the talk about Kroenke, all the talk about San Diego and Oakland, and where do you think that stands now?
I don't think it's moved much from where it was, Woody. I think it's still in that early stage. I've talked to Sam Farmer, the Times NFL writer, who's been so on top of this thing as from day one, and it's still kind of in a holding pattern. We'll see. Who knows? I mean, this is like it's like a LA is like an adolescent with a high school junior, and the NFL is a pimple on his forehead, and it won't go away. But it just it never clears up either.
But as you pointed out to us the last time, it's like a high school junior with every guy who's a senior wanting to go out to the prom with that high school junior, because Los Angeles has been used, Troy, I'm sure you would know, by like 73 NFL teams as a way to get stadiums built in everywhere from Jacksonville to Wembley Stadium, maybe. So
I do know
we're the great enabler.
They will have the draft in LA as part of that. When they do get a team in LA or teams, the draft will follow.
And the Super Bowl. I mean, there'll be a rotation of the Super Bowl in L.A. There'll be the draft. L.A. will become one of the two centers of the NFL once it happens.
LA's a good Super Bowl town.
Yeah, it always was. I thought I rode with one out to the Rose Bowl with Jim Murray.
When you guys got cut in traffic, that one? The San Francisco 49ers one where you got stuck in traffic?
Oh, yeah, forever and ever. And Jim, who was my idol and then my compatriot, and now my idol is Bill Plaschke, and he guaranteed 100% that the Clippers would win the game last night. That isn't working out very well for him. One other issue, and I know you look at it from afar and with some interest, is talking about the NFL. They've got a lot of irons in the fire right now, and LA has kind of been put on the back burner because of Deflategate. Do you think the revelation that Roger Goodell is going to preside over the appeals, the appeal made by the Patriots, is the right thing to do?
Seems a little incestuous. I don't know. It seems.
You said it.
I'm uncomfortable with it. what do you think? I haven't heard you guys talking
Well,
about it.
the biggest news, the up-to-date news is he's going to be called by the Patriots to testify. So I don't know whether he puts his both hands, as Troy said, both hands on the Bible, or holds up both hands, or whatever it might be. It's just incredible. It's been blown out of such proportion, but the Patriots, as Bob Ryan, they've become the new outliers. They're like the old Oakland Raiders under Al Davis.
Right.
Okay, we're just gonna fight everything to the death. It seems like.
Well, I think the suspension was in light of other suspensions that have been handed down for offenses that I would consider far more severe. I think it was a bit harsh, but I think that I wouldn't be surprised if the thinking was that, okay, let's suspend this guy 4 games, and then by the time this process all goes through, it's going to be cut down to 2 games anyway. But I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but
and if you just started with 2 games, it probably would have gone away. Mike, we really appreciate you coming back on with us, and I hope you'll join us from time to time, because I love looking at you on Skype and looking at that surf in the background that you have there.
Yeah, he's got an
He's got great
advantage.
pictures.
He's in Southern
See,
California.
Troy maybe today learned something from you, that he's got to create a set at his house that is really a good background.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, thanks for the time.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Woody.
Yep. This segment's sponsored by John Elway Cadillac of Park Meadows, Colorado's #1 Cadillac dealer.
When you go to buy a car, what do you really want? You probably want a lot of cars to choose from. And you want the dealership's best price. Not some starting price or target price, the best price. And you want it immediately, not after hours of negotiating. And you want a salesperson who doesn't get paid more if you spend more. Because, well, you don't want to spend more. Well, you're in luck. John Elway wants all of those things too. Better yet, John Elway wants you to have all of those things too. Come see us or click on elwaydealers.com.